Here, I'd invite everybody to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Council, if you'd like to stop your video, you can do so in the bottom left hand of your screen. And Dan will pull up the flag. There we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. City Council members, you have before you an agenda for this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
And I'll second, Mara. Sam.
We have a motion from Councilmember Munson and a second from Councilmember Husnick. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Kathy, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I don't believe Councilmember Gerard was at the meeting on the 22nd.
We're just approving the agenda.
We're
I'm
approving the agenda.
sorry.
You are correct, Kathy, but I'll pull that.
Sorry. Sorry. Oh, dear.
Skipping agenda items is usually my job.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, it has. We'll take that as an aye.
is that a yes then?
I'm sorry. Yes, I did say aye.
And Mayor Bain.
Aye, our agenda is approved. Our next item on the agenda this evening is open forum. Dan, do we have any submissions for open forum?
There was no submissions for open forum for tonight's meeting.
Very good, thank you. And we did have a couple questions on people this week wondering how they can approach council and how they can participate in open forum. Just a reminder that there is a full instructions on our COVID response page that has the link of the email to send, info@cityoforrestlake.com. And please note in your email that you would like your comments to be read aloud, and we are happy to read those comments aloud into open forum. So very happy to continue to include public input as part of these remote meetings. With that, moving on to the next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. Tonight we have for your consideration items 6A through 6J. I will entertain any motions to approve or changes.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, but remove item B for the minutes from the June 22nd, 2020 regular council meeting.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Karen, could we have a roll call on items 6A and C through J?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. Consent agenda items are approved. And moving on to item 6B, the minutes from June 22nd regular council meeting. Councilmember Gerard.
I have no real comments except I did not attend, so I'll be abstaining on this motion.
Madam Mayor, this is Council.
There,
I'd make a motion that we approve item 6B, the minutes of the June 22nd meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Husnick. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Munson. Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
Abstain.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. Item 6B is approved. Moving on to our regular agenda this evening, our first item is 7A, the aerial lift bucket truck purchase. Dave, are you walking us through this evening?
Yeah, with one little snafu, I'm just about to my driveway now, and I don't know if I should be presenting this while I'm driving in my vehicle. I just
You
on my way
you
from
should
home for work,
not.
so.
You should not, council members. I'd like to make I'd motion that we move item 7A to underneath item 7B and just postpone it on the agenda until Dave is able to get to a safe place. Is there a second to the change in agenda?
I'll second that, Mara. Sam?
And we have a second from Councilmember Husnick. Any discussion? Karen, could we have a roll call vote on the agenda change? And again, the motion is to move agenda item 7A to underneath agenda item 7B, the end of the regular agenda for this evening.
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson.
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. By the time we get the agenda rearranged, Dave would probably be at his desk, but we'll proceed here.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to item 7, that's all right. Moving on to item 7B, the resolution 713-2002 COVID-19 relief grant program. Karen, you are walking us through this.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, this resolution is for the creation of a relief grant program for those business owners that were not able to utilize their license fully this year due to the shutdown based on the executive orders from the governor that began March 18th. I believe the shutdown the full shutdown went through June 10th, so it was approximately 84 days. As things move forward, we don't know if there's going to be additional days added to that. So there isn't a set amount of days, but what this grant program would provide is some relief to those business owners that bought licenses for particular businesses. It includes some liquor licenses and then massage licenses, as they were the ones that were fully impacted by that and not able to use their license for a set number of days. But it would provide a refund, I guess not necessarily a refund, a grant back to them in the form of funds to provide relief for the expenses that they paid for those licenses that they were not able to use. This is being created in the form of a grant so that as it falls under the CARES Act, the city will be able to be reimbursed for those funds. And so that's what this resolution is for. We don't have full details yet on what that's going to look like in terms of the CARES Act, but we do want it to be automatic for those business owners, not an application that they would have to fill out and apply for to receive those funds. It would just be an automatic thing that they get back. My understanding is that this is for the 2020 year, that it doesn't go beyond that. And with the exception of that, there's not a lot of detail that we have on that yet, other than funds are being distributed to the city of Forest Lake. And so that's what this would fall under. And if you have any questions, I can try to answer them, or Pete knows a little bit about this too. He might be able to answer some of the questions.
Thank you, Karen. Council members, what questions do you have?
Madam
Are
Mayor,
there any questions? Councilmember Gerard.
I think so far we're looking at about 80 some days, if I remember correct, that they were shut down, especially the restaurants and bars. So if they if we have an unfortunate instance where we have to re-shut down, that next stretch in 2020 would also count. Is that correct?
I don't think we've determined that yet under this. This only currently contemplates what has happened in the past. We would have to look and see if that would continue for the future, if that's the case. The problem with that is that depending on when the shutdown is, because we as the city, in order for it to get reimbursed by the CARES Act, if it's eligible, we have to do that by November 15th. So anything after November 15th, the council then would decide whether it's just out of their regular funds, or which it's going to be anyways, and if it's reimbursable by the CARES Act. So we can do it no matter what, but if we were looking for reimbursement, we have to do it by November 15th. So it just depends on when the shutdown happens.
I will mention that the EDA passed a resolution in their meeting just right before this of support for this action. So just wanted to make that be known as well.
I think our esteemed
Any,
lawyer,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Councilmember Gerard.
I believe our esteemed lawyer has a comment.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Madam Mayor, members of the council, in answer to your question a moment ago, the language of this resolution is automatic for any shutdowns caused by an executive order or state law that would affect their 2020 license. So if we need to make some adjustments for what might happen after November, this resolution needs a little bit more work. I'm not sure that there's much of an opportunity for that to actually arise or create a problem. But as Karen mentioned, this is set up to be automatic. And so the only bracket on it is that it's the 2020 license fee. I could certainly revise it to give you an opportunity to revisit in November, make it effective now, and bring that back at the next meeting if that would be preferable. But I did not understand the objective of leaving an opening at the end of the year, so I didn't account for that in the resolution.
Oh, I have no problem with that. I was just curious what would happen if we end up turning the dial back too far.
I think we could revisit that if that happens in pretty quick order. So I'm not concerned right now with the way the resolution is written.
I also, should we enter into another shutdown period, and if that were to extend beyond November 15th, I can't imagine that I personally would be in a position of wanting to pull that back just because that's when the funding deadline expired. We're talking about license fees that overall are, I would have supported a refund even if they weren't reimbursable from the CARES Act. So just from my perspective, I like that it's automatic, and I'm not concerned about there potentially being a reimbursement challenge based off of the November 15th date. Just my personal perspective. Councilmember Byström.
I tend to agree with you, Mayor Bain. I feel like, our businesses have really kind of suffered through some of this, and we certainly have limitations in what we are able to do, whether it's help them build an outdoor patio or pass a resolution. So I'm really in full support of this and agree that, I would have no trouble extending this should we have to turn that dial back and go back into some sort of shutdown as well.
Very good. Any other questions on this item? Councilmember Husnick, go ahead.
My comment is that I'm very comfortable with the way it's written at the moment. And I think it does give us an opportunity to revisit it. So, and I'm happy it's happening. So I think based on that, I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution 0713-2022 as written.
I'll second it.
Go ahead, Kathy.
There's a motion and a second from Councilmember Byström. Any further discussion on this topic? Not hearing any. Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick.
Aye.
Councilmember Munson. Councilmember Byström.
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. And motion approved. Next item on our agenda is resolution 713-2003, the emergency declaration extension. Council members, there is a memo in your packet, and I believe, Peter, you're going to walk us through this.
Yes, Your Honor. However, based on the motion to amend the agenda, I believe the next item is the Dave Adams item for the aerial lift bucket truck.
Point of clarification, I thought we moved him to the end at 7B.
D is in Delta.
I'm sorry, D as in dog.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You heard B. I'm happy to proceed, Your Honor. I'm
Please.
happy.
Please.
Sorry for my mishearing. You've been down this road pretty much every month now for several. There's not a lot new here to consider. I would report, since the memo was issued earlier today, the governor did issue Executive Order 2078, extending the state of emergency for another 30 days as expected. The emergency declaration locally is important for the city to maintain the flexibility to take some of the steps, including what it's doing tonight, what the council just did tonight. And so I'd recommend that the council adopt this resolution. We check back in 30 days, see if we're out of the woods or where we're at then.
Thank you, Peter. Council, any questions this evening?
Peter, this is Husnick, Council Husnick. Does it still give us the same flexibility as that we've always had with these resolutions? You know, if we can change it kind of along the way, and I just want to make sure of that.
Councilmember Husnick, Mayor Bain, the resolution maintains the exact same declaration of emergency that we've always been operating under, with the same set of rights and powers that the city acquires by being on an emergency footing.
Any further discussion on this item or questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 07-13-20-03, declaration and resolution extending the declaration of the local emergency.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilmember Byström. Any further discussion on this item? Just a quick note, I know that there's been some pushback, and there was some pushback today on the governor's extension. Those that are concerned perhaps about what this means for the city of Forest Lake, I would draw their attention to what this emergency does for the city, in that it appoints an emergency manager. It allows for us to conduct these meetings in a remote format, and it also provides us an avenue to be reimbursed to the extent that any reimbursement occurs. Please go to that emergency declaration and read all of those provisions in total. And I feel that under the current situation, those are all very valid and timely provisions and support the extension of the emergency declaration. Wish we were under different circumstances, but I think it is the right thing for us to do at this time. So thank you. And any further discussion? Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. Motion's approved. All right, our next item this evening is Resolution 713-2004, which is the approval of an increase in the amount of the TIF note to be issued by the city. Peter, can you tee this one up for us? You're on mute, sir.
We'll have it down to a science by the time we don't need it. Your Honor, council members, the development agreement with Lighthouse Lofts in its ordinary operation had assignment of responsibilities for costs for various elements of the project. The public elements of the project, Lighthouse Lofts is to be reimbursed for through a TIF note. That's pretty straightforward. And one of the public costs of the project related to 2nd Avenue Northwest, there was a maximum amount in the development agreement that Lighthouse Lofts was supposed to expend on that. There is a dispute between the parties about what 2nd Avenue Northwest should have costs. And the subject of that dispute is not in front of the council tonight. We're not here to settle or resolve any disputes. We're simply adjusting the TIF note to reimburse the public cost of the project that staff agrees were the public costs of the project, which requires a minor $55,000 adjustment to $1 million+ TIF note.
Thank you for the clarification, Peter. Council, any questions of Peter? And if there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve. Or a motion.
Madam Mayor? I'll make
Councilmember Gerard,
a motion to approve resolution number 07-13-20-04, approval of an increase in the amount of the TIF note for Lighthouse Lofts.
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
we have a motion by Councilmember Gerard and a second by Councilmember Husnick. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. Karen, could we also have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson.
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. Motion's approved. Moving on to our postponed item on the agenda, the aerial lift bucket truck purchase. Dave, is now a better time?
It is. I apologize. I was lost track of time, and it's been a few couple of days, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Mayor and
Do you want
Council.
to walk us through the purchase? Yeah.
Yep. Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm seeking approval for the last kind of bigger purchase that was approved in the 2020 CIP. This is a bucket aerial truck. It would be replacing our 2008 model. Typically, you see this truck when we do our tree trimming through the year, a lot in the fall, but it also is used to put up the snowflakes downtown, putting up the Christmas tree up and down, hanging flower baskets, traffic light repairs, and then replacing lights and issues on our city-owned street lights. This truck the current truck we have is 12 years old. It has 130,000 miles on it, both of which exceed our 10-year, 100,000 mile replacement policy. This is kind of like a plow truck in that fact that you have to buy a cab and chassis separate, and then you have to buy the bucket aerial service truck portion, differently. So to get the vehicle, you have to seek a quote from a vehicle manufacturer and then one from a person who builds truck components. The crazy thing is that business is pretty good for aerial booms, and that I was told last week that even on approval it would be 10 to 12 months for this thing to get built. So that's almost plow truck nature. That's pretty long out, but it's the way it is. As part of the budget for 2020, we were budgeted $150,000 for this unit. When you add up the cab and chassis and the aerial bucket truck, it comes to $148,655.98. So a little bit under budget. ABM Equipment offered us about approximately $9,000 for a trade-in value. We are not going to accept that trade-in value, and from the trending on surplus equipment, as I've seen through the last year and a half to 2 years, bare minimum, we should be able to get $15,000 at auction, and some have gone as far up as $30,000. So I think we'll be able to recoup, even if we set the reserve at $9,000, we're gonna make that and more if approved. So tonight I'm just seeking approval for the purchase of the cab and chassis for $48,063.98, and approval of the aerial service body for $103,592. Just a side note, this, like I said earlier, this is the last larger purchase, and if approved, if you add up all the little bits aheads and a little bit below is public works, will be about $11,000 under the complete total budgeted amount for CIP purchases. So I know in the spring we purchased it or got approval to spend a little bit more than budgeted, but we did end up coming about $10 or $11,000 below that if approved. So, but I am happy to answer any questions or any comments you have for myself.
Thank you, Dave. Council, what questions do you have this evening? Or are there any questions this evening?
Mayor Bain?
Councilmember Gerard?
I don't have any questions about the truck. I'm sure that the city has done their due diligence on specking out what they need. Do we need one motion or two motions tonight since it's two separate bids?
I believe this could be taken care of in one motion unless Peter disagrees.
Your Honor, one motion will suffice.
Thank you.
Mayor Bain, I make a motion to approve the purchase of the 2021 Ford 550 cab and chassis for $45,063.98 and the purchase of ABM aerial service body for $103,592 for a total expenditure of $148,655.98.
Second.
There's a motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Munson. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none. Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson.
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. Motion approved. Next item on our agenda this evening is the Ace Hardware invoices.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the Ace Hardware invoices.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Munson with a second from Councilmember Byström. Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Abstain.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. Motion approved. That wraps up our regular agenda items this evening. We are going to move on to staff updates. And are we missing Patrick? I'm not sure. Oh, there you are. The squares are bouncing around tonight, so you're in different spots. Let's start with Chief Peterson, and then we'll go to Chief Newman for staff updates.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, good evening. Since our last meeting, city residents and community members celebrated July 4th with a more condensed, in a more condensed manner, and with no large parade, carnival, or fireworks. The police department didn't receive any serious calls or receive any major concerns from over the holiday weekend. We also did not receive any complaints on large parties or get-togethers from the weekend either. So it was all in all a good weekend. I know many residents and community members were hoping that we could have the usual parade, carnival, and fireworks, but I am happy to report that no serious calls for service from over the weekend. And that's all I have for you on updates, unless you have a question for me.
It's great to hear. Good to hear we had a safe 4th of July, albeit a less densely populated 4th of July. I know we've had a couple questions about and requests for the speed trailer on a different topic, and I know that it was out for repairs for a period of time. Is that back now? I've gotten a couple of more requests that I've kind of held, not knowing where we were on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a software problem. And so what I guess you would consider the motherboard went out. So we had to package it up and send it back to Custom Signals, and they're repairing it as we speak. I'm hoping that we're going to get it back in the next week or two.
Can you shoot a quick note once it is back in service? I've kind of let people know that it's not out right now, but I'll get those requests over to you as soon as it's back in.
Definitely. Will do.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief Peterson this evening? Chief Newman, and we'll go to Patrick after Chief Newman.
Mayor and City Council, good evening as well. 4th of July was quiet for the fire department. We did not have any major incidences throughout the weekend, which is good. No fireworks related injuries that I'm aware of. Today, or earlier today, we took delivery of our 2020 tender pumper from Rosenbauer. It was delivered here this afternoon. So for the next 4 weeks, we'll be going through driving training and pumping and operation of the truck to get people familiar with how to operate the truck. So hopefully we'll have that into service by the middle of next month. And then later this week, we're having our first joint fire board meeting at 7 o'clock on Thursday. It'll be a combination of in-person and online. That's all I have unless you have questions for me.
Very good. Any questions for Chief Newman this evening? Seeing none, we'll do Patrick next and Dan after Patrick.
Yeah, just two brief items. With the extension of the emergency powers, we will still be following, obviously, as the mayor mentioned before, is the video meeting platforms. And we will also be continuing alternating office staff in and out of the office, working from home through probably now the end of August. So just in case you don't see us all sitting here at one time. And the only other thing is it's been a good year to be in the golf business again. Seems the courses are doing well and reports from the golf course are good. So I just thought I'd pass that along.
It's great to hear. Any questions for Patrick this evening? Seeing none, Dan.
Just a quick.
And we'll go
update
to
on
Pete after Dan. Sorry, Dan. Pete
No
after
worries.
Dan, and then go ahead.
Update on the remote video and remote meeting attendance. You notice tonight's format's a little bit different than the meeting attendance or meeting formats we've been using before. We switched into the webinar format. Reason being is that this will allow residents to participate as an attendee, so they were able to speak during the open forum portion of the meeting. We've been using this in Planning Commission for public hearings. It's worked extremely well. So wanted to give a dry run at council here to make sure that everybody was able to get into the meeting tonight. Everybody was able to. So now residents will be able to speak live to council during the open forum portion moving forward. Also tonight, I'm sitting in council chambers right now. We are working with LATV to get the video and audio component figured out. So if we need to do a in-person and remote option, we're getting closer to that being allowed as well. So making some progress on the remote video capabilities for the city. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions for Dan this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to Peter and Ryan after Peter.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. I don't have any update for you this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good. Any questions for Peter this evening? Seeing none, Ryan, and we'll do Dave after Ryan.
Mayor, City Council, Ryan Goodman, City Engineer. First start with County State Aid Highway 33 or Everettson Avenue. So there's been a very good turnout with the online open house and survey. And then they also have a comment map. So if you guys have not got involved with that or shared that with people that should be of interest to that project, certainly continue to do that before that stuff closes. But I want to clarify this number because I was like blown away when I heard it. But the county said they've had over 3,000 views by doing this online open house process. And typically when we have a public open house, say at 7 o'clock City Hall, we might see 50 if we're lucky. So this is certainly a much quicker way to get a hold of people, and it allows flexibility for the people that, can't make that specific night and time frame. So that might be something you see trending moving forward, certainly between the counties and the states. Helps down on a lot of staff time too, when they're running multiple projects. So just wanted you guys aware of that, and that stuff's still open. Also with the roundabout project on Highway 97 in Goodview, we'll be moving into our second phase, which begins July 21st. That means we'll be flopping traffic to the other side. Approximately mid-August, Highway 97 will have to close between Goodview and 61 for about 2 to 3 weeks, just so we can construct the very west end part of that traffic shift. And, you know, after that, then we won't have any major closures and we'll be basically working stuff at the surface. So if you've been really following that project and watching the activity, you know, as you drive by, you know, things appear like typical on a project, moving slow at the beginning, just because in this project, you have so much underground utility work that had to be done. That obviously gets done part of the phase one. Now, you know, you're starting to see a lot more of the surface stuff coming to shape, and that stuff goes a lot faster than all the underground stuff. So things will really start looking like a finished project between now and into August here. So that's going very well. And also just early heads up on this. This is Highway 97 with MnDOT leading this project and a potential 2024 construction project between I-35 and Highway 61, kind of where they left off from the project. A couple of things that are going to come up to a discussion at the city council level and what support we might have moving forward is the potential trail construction on the south side of the roadway, which will mean after the project's constructed, city owned and maintained, you know, and what does maintenance include and stuff like that. So that's something that we'll bring forward at a workshop. But also part of the project, MnDOT is going to want to have conversation about potential reduce access at Forest Road and Highway 97 part of this project too. So that'll obviously take more of engagement with you guys and, you know, adjacent properties and businesses. Just want to give you early heads up on that. I know our next workshop is full, so potentially we'll look in August or maybe even September on that, but you know, on top of budget season 2. But so they're scoping that project, and we're moving forward to a 2024 project, which will be a great improvement to the area, but it will have some local share within. As we got 2 major local legs at Everton and Fenway. We do have water main that's basically constructed on the south edge of the road now, and they're expanding to the south. So basically our water main from Forest Road to almost Fenway is going to have to be relocated to the south to get outside of their new roadway embankment. And that's not a cheap thing too. So you'll see some of those things now introduced into the budget as we're putting estimates together so we can plan accordingly come 2024. Those are kind of the major highlights. Everything else is still routinely moving forward. With the seal coat crack filling project portion of the project is moving forward, and then the local street improvement project is moving forward too. And I know, you know, Councilmember Husnick, you've seen a lot of activity around your business area, and that's progressing nicely. So before we move to the next phases of that project. So with that, I'll open up with any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for Ryan this evening?
Sounds like you got a full plate, Ryan. I'm happy though. The improvements around our business have been fantastic. Right now, it was sorely needed. So anyways, thanks for all your help.
Councilmember Byström.
I believe we discussed this, the 97 project at a previous either workshop or meeting, as I recall. Is MnDOT still looking at 4 lanes, Ryan?
No, they are not. So another council meeting or workshop, we followed up and kind of gave a verbal update.
Okay.
We were going to potentially explore a 5-lane, you know, kind of something what you see down like Frenchman Boulevard and Hugo.
Right.
However, to get to that point, the city was going to have to take the lead into an application. And then because of how the things work out, we would be responsible for the local cost share of that grant requirement. That instantly made the city at a minimum required to put $1 million into the project of something that's not our roadway. One, it'd be hard to sell to our taxpayers. We're spending our street money on a trunk highway. 2, the capacity isn't quite there with the projections, and you can manipulate that both ways, whatever way you want to go in future projections and throw some other carrots in there. So it wasn't just a process we wanted to go through, but let alone to even get a successful application, you were looking at a significant amount of cost to go through the public outreach and get letters of support and approved layouts. So there were a lot of things that have to go into just the application. But then if you were successful, City of Forest Lake had to post the local responsibility portion of that grant. Several conversations went through MnDOT to determine that. That was something that they made a minor error and just verbally something they stated at one of our preliminary meetings with you guys that, hey, we can get this grant, but after it went through the internal process and review, but then all the requirements tied to it, it was just a no-brainer for the city not to push for the 5-lane at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Ryan, is that an option? Is that an option for a future bonding bill proposal to turn that to the expansion of that, or is that a non-starter if we're not willing to do the local share?
It's the data would be it's not going to score as well as a lot of other projects. Unfortunately, it's been, other than some minor fender benders here and there, we haven't had consistency of bad accidents. And with the increase of MnDOT already going from what it is today to what they're proposing, you're going to have a significant amount of increase and a lot of safety improvements with that. So it's kind of like a watershed project, right? If you're going to go beyond the grant or the permit requirements, you're going to get a grant. But if you're going to go even farther out, way past that, and just do stuff to, for now be doing it, it's going to score difficult, and they're going to fund their money to something else. And the amount of money we would need to get by 2024 is probably not realistic in what you're talking. We're talking 12 to 17 million extra. So
yeah, understood. I'll keep asking. Other questions for Ryan?
Just a comment.
Councilmember Gerard.
Ryan, it's really good to see all of the street work. I realize that it's a little inconvenient getting around right now, but it's really nice to see it all coming to fruition, all the work that you guys have done. So thank you.
a lot of it is your public works department too. They're engaged and fully addressed in what's going on and planning. So they deserve as much credit as everybody else.
Well stated. Two quick items for you tonight, Ryan. You mentioned July's workshop is full, and that is true. If you wanted to if we were running out of planned workshop sessions for that 97 project, happy to dedicate discussion only time on a regular agenda as well. So work that in however we need to. I worry a little bit about it pushing too far into September, but we can be flexible with that discussion only portion on regular agendas if that works too.
Well noted. We'll discuss with Pat and Public Works, and Dave, see what fits best for everything moving forward.
And then just a general question for anybody who might be following. I know the legislature went back into session on a special session today, and I know the bonding bill is one of the items that is on the planned agenda. I haven't seen that our wastewater project came off, so I'm assuming that we are still in the running, but wanted to ask the question and see if anybody had any more updated information.
Yeah, to my knowledge, it's still on. The whole list that they've proposed is still there. So we're still on for a wastewater project at the $1 million grant to do the lift stations, as far as we know.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Dave, and we'll go Karen after Dave.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Had a little excitement over the weekend. We had a well go down, and then we went to our backup, and then our backup to the backup, and oh please, we never should ever get to this emergency backup, and we got down to that one. So this is the Reader Digest version. Our well itself didn't go down. It's the drive or the motor drive that controls the starting and stopping of the well, and how much and how fast and how slow it runs to kind of jive with the rest of the treatment process. That went down on Friday afternoon. The fix for that was running both of the wells at our water treatment plant number 1 and 3. When that happens, as part of the rehab project that we're doing and as part of the water bond, that plant is getting separated Up until this point, you could either run water plant 1 or water plant 3 to fully treat the water. When this rehab project is done, you'll be able to run both, but as of right now, we still cannot do that. So we ran for about a day without really adding softened water. It doesn't cause any issues for people, except if maybe you're running a car wash facility. You would notice that your suds aren't getting as sudsy for a little while. But because you're running both of those wells for about 24 hours straight, one of the drives on well 5 fell apart. So that left us with only one well left, and the emergency to the hope we never get here resorted into us going to the old township well number 6. That's right underneath the south water tower by the football fields there. That well we don't really want to use just because it's not hooked to a treatment facility. So once we got to that point, we ended up having to get a hold of chemical control companies, set up a bunch of chemical feeds, get all that set up and tested to make sure we were adding chlorine and fluoride and phosphate and all that to make safe drinking water. So by about 11 o'clock on Saturday night, we put that into service, and that kind of was able to hold us on. We ended up finding a bunch of cobbled parts. We got one of the wells back going. Today we found a replacement drive for well number 4. It's not going to be the final drive, but it's one that'll work in it. And then about dinner time tonight, we got that one back online. So we are back at full capacity, and it's going to take some time, and some parts are out a week or 2, but with what we got, about a week or 2, we should be completely back to running with the equipment that should be at where it's at. So I know I reached out to you, Patrick, and the council just to kind of let you know what was going on. We didn't get to the point of no return, but I just wanted to make everyone aware over the weekend of kind of where we're at with that whole deal. And then to top the cake off, on Sunday, we had a power fail at City Lift Station 3, which is right off 12th Avenue Southeast. That, of course, had to be one of the stations that doesn't have a generator hookup. And no other house was out of power, so Excel doesn't really rush at those situations when everyone's out except for you. We're the only 3-phase power down there. So that station didn't have power for 11 hours. And it was ourselves and 2 Olson Sewer, basically sewer trucks, pumping out of there as fast as we could just to keep it from flowing back into people's houses. So we had one issue of not enough water and one issue of way too much water all at the same time. So, but back online, we'll let irrigation companies go back to irrigating ready tomorrow. We're just making it go through the night to make sure everything's running fine, and then the sewer didn't cause any backups in any houses, so that's power's restored and we're operating with that. So nothing but a little excitement for the weekend. That's all I have for an update. So nothing big going on in Public Works, and that's all we got.
Dave, I know you'll think about this and kind of postmortem it and what went wrong and what do we do so that we aren't having to pull back the township well. The projects we have in place right now, is that when those are complete, do we take ourselves out of this scenario? How do we prevent something getting back to the backup and and kind of a potentially tenuous situation? What other backup provisions do we need, or what else do we do? And I guess I know that you're just coming out of this, so you may not have a full assessment, but anything initially?
Well, I guess as far as the water supply plan, what we have covered in there, we'll take care of and safeguard. They'll have a lot better backups for what we ran into today, or this weekend. the problem is just timing, you know. I believe Bolton and Mink came up with this water supply plan in 2011, 2012. And at that time, it was kind of just pushed underneath the rug and not talked about. And it's basically a mirror image of what was approved, you know, last fall by the city council. But it's great, but that was 7 years of what needed to be done just didn't happen, you know. So the stuff in the plan is going to take care of a lot of these issues, but you're talking, you know, 4, 5, 6 years from now until all that happens. So, I mean, the great news is that what we have bonded for and what we have in the plan to protect our drinking water and to not run into these issues is in the plan. It's just, you know, you're bound to have this situation when even 10 years ago they said, hey, we have a pretty big problem here, we need to correct this. So it's more or less, we've been fortunate not to run into this issue. And when it happened, you know, we made our way through it, and the funding is there, and the Vision 5 Bolton and Mink was there as well. It just, we happened to not be able to be lucky for another couple years until that happened. The one thing we did change with the drives as we're doing all this now, and we ran into these issues, we are now, as we buy these new ones, we're going to retrofit some other ones. So basically all of our 3 wells and our high service pumps will basically have the same identical drive, which will allow us to put one of these, the drives, they range from maybe $7,500 to $20,000 a piece. So to put, as we sit right now, we have 5 different ones. So if you might have $100,000 worth of drives sitting on the shelf for just in case, which, you know, a person's not going to put an air conditioner in their garage just in case their air conditioner might fail too. So it's kind of being frugal with your money, but also knowing worst case scenario. But by doing this and changing stuff around, we will, I mean, it'll be justification to have one of these drives on the shelf because it'll match up with 6 different pumps. So if one of these 6 go down, you know, we will have one of these backups. And then, and lesson learned, or not lesson learned, but as the lift station that went down too, I mean, it's in, we did step 1 of the lift station project, which was done in 17 and 18. And we just talked about the grant funding for our phase 2 of this plan. It's scheduled to be in 22 and 23. So in 22, in the fall of 23, if this would have happened, we'd have had a generator hook up there, and we had driven down a portable generator and plugged it in and waited for Xcel to call us and say the power's back on. So it's just bad timing again. It's in the plans. It's just, we haven't got to that point yet. So I think that kind of answers the question. It's there. The foresight is there, you know, working with Bolton and Mink and my staff as well. It's a lot of the thought had gone into it. Just we haven't got to the point to where we want to be. We just have to get there.
Thank you for that. Council, other questions for Dave? Well, I know it's been a long weekend for your crew, so thank you to them for getting us here back online, and there's some work ahead as well. So thank you to your team for kind of getting us through it.
Yeah, and I handle a lot of logistical stuff, but my staff, my full staff was in probably from Friday night till yesterday afternoon, working the whole entire weekend. So it's more hats off to them to be troubleshooting and problem solving. A lot of the ideas that we came up with came from them too, just knowing how our system works and, you know, let's try this, let's try that. So, I mean, the group of those 5 utility guys really, I mean, they pulled together for this weekend. You know, I couldn't have done it just by myself and barking orders. So they really did a marvelous job.
Thank you for that. Thank you to them. All right, we'll move on to Karen, and we'll have Sandy after Karen, and then we'll move on to council update.
Thanks,
Karen,
Mayor.
any updates for council this evening?
No, no updates.
Thank you. Any questions for Karen? Sandy,
I have nothing tonight unless there's any questions.
any questions for Sandy this evening? Seeing none, we'll transition to council updates. We'll do Councilmember Husnick first, followed by Councilmember Byström, Councilmember Munson, Councilmember Gerard, and we'll wrap up with myself. Councilmember Husnick, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the Airport Commission meeting last Wednesday. We had a couple things on the agenda that were fairly important. One of them was part of our consent agenda, was the fact that they finished the airport maintenance project that we had approved on, I guess about a year ago. And finally it's done now. And then there was some updates through Dan. The engineer couldn't make it, but Dan was explaining the update on our possible funding that we were looking at, so we could maybe get some other infrastructure out there for more hangars. That hasn't happened, but they are going to help us fund some changes that we needed to do at the gas pumps there. And because the card reader thing is, well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So since that was in need of work. So sounds like that's going to get done and taken care of. And I think Dan is, they're looking at estimates on getting that fixed. So the other issue that came up at the Airport Commission was that we've got 3 lots out there that haven't been built on yet. They're taken down. They're folks are paying rent on them, but they do have an obligation to build a hangar on them within a certain length of time, which is a couple of years. And that conversation is taking place with those folks, and we'll get that straightened out too. So that's moving along. The other thing that happened is I've talked to a couple different people now about the proposed projects over at the Lutheran Church for the folks that are having some issues. And so that's going to be an interesting conversation coming up, and be looking forward to that conversation. So we just talk. It wasn't anything that anybody's making a decision. It was just getting as much information as we can. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Byström.
Just a few things for me, mostly related to Park Trails Lakes. The farmers market kicked off last Tuesday. About 100 in attendance, which was I think a greater than expected turnout. And I know that the neighborhoods surrounding Fenway Fields are thrilled to have the farmers market in their backyard. And that's as you all well know, it's a pretty populated residential area around there. So it's just been really, really well received. Jamie and her team are doing some popsicle distribution. It was really well received last week when it was so beastly hot. So just really doing a great job trying to come up with some ideas to kind of fill the gap in what would be a normal summer in the city of Forest Lake, and doing a great job. And just also want to echo Patrick's statement about Castlewood Golf Course and the great job management is doing out there. They are offering for Parks and Recreation Month, $18 9-hole and cart for the rest of the month of July. So if you golf, or even if you don't golf, you should get out there and give it a try. The course is in absolutely outstanding condition. I'm out there coaching my husband as often as possible. So, and then just some citizen communication around masks and the sacred settlement at Faith Lutheran Church as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Munson, and then we'll Councilmember Gerard.
No updates tonight.
Very good. Councilmember Gerard.
Thank you. First off, the Cable Commission met last week. Financially, they're solid. Haven't been spending much, haven't been bringing as much in, so it kind of nets even. A lot of discussion of lack of students filming anything. So we got on the discussion of what happens this fall, especially if sports are canceled. and they're uncertain, what they would be filming. So both myself and Jeff over at Columbus put a bug in the air to do more businesses, get some more videos on that. So we're urging them to move forward with somewhere along those lines if we're not doing high school sports and some of the other stuff. Also, the Planning Commission met last week. No big shakes on that. I know they're excited about meeting with us next week at the workshop meeting for on a couple of different issues. So we look forward to seeing them. And lastly, I want to congratulate Ryan and Bolton and Mink for being one of the top places in the state to work. They're in the top 200. So congratulations to Ryan and Bolton and Mink.
Congratulations. Thank you, Councilmember Gerard. I just have a couple of quick updates this evening. EDA meeting, or the EDA met before this. We talked through a continuation of the discussion of the business retention program. We are looking for a September launch of that program in partnership with the Forsyth Area Chamber of Commerce. Also got an update from Washington County, and Washington County Board has on their agenda for tomorrow's meeting to approve a business grant program that will be part of their CARES Act funding that the county has received. So look for additional information on that. They are approving the grant amount at tomorrow's meeting, or that is on the agenda. Assuming that that gets approved, they will be approving the distribution process and the application process towards the end of the month, and would look for probably an August application cycle, probably in a 2-week time frame is the process that Chris Eng described to the EDA. So something to keep in mind and to be watching out for. They may be, to the extent that they have a surplus of requests to their program, they may be approaching cities and asking for if there was a willingness to partnership on some of the distribution of dollars that we have available to us. And so should we want to head down that road, there is an administrative path, or we have a willing partner to help us with an administration if that was one of the ways we chose to use that CARES Act funding. So certainly things to be thinking about and considering as we are putting together our plans for that CARES Act response. Also, Councilmember Gerard mentioned the items with the Planning Commission next Monday. So just quick calendar check, make sure you have on your calendar at 5:30. It is a large format joint workshop between the EDA, the Planning Commission, and Council. That is at 5:30, and the topic of that meeting is the Headwaters 123 zoning. As you know, Council has had conversations on plans for that plot of land. The EDA has had many similar discussions related to plans for that development. That project is now on the Planning Commission's desk related to the zoning, and they have some questions and would like to kind of bring all groups to the table, make sure there's common consensus, and I applaud them for making that request. Happy to accommodate it. So that's at 5:30 next Monday, the 20th. And then at 6:30 on Monday, the 20th, we are having a joint workshop with just the Planning Commission. EDA is welcome to stay if they would like to stay as participants, but they are not active, or they're able to stay as viewers of that meeting, but they are not participants. And that is a workshop with City Council and Planning Commission to talk about the Faith Lutheran Church proposal for tiny homes. So good opportunity, education. Both of those are just workshop formats, open to the public. And I know both of those topics have had a fair amount of discussion, so I look forward to them as well. And then a quick reminder related to the EDA, Monday the 27th at 5:30, our typical EDA time is going to be reserved for the downtown committee kickoff. We had hoped to be able to do some sort of an in-person session for that. However, given where we are with COVID and the extension of the emergency declaration, that is going to be moved to an online only format. We are looking to use Zoom breakout sessions and to get creative on Zoom to try to make it as interactive as possible, although we are going to be remote. So that is still planned for the 27th, and be reaching out to your invitees that you had attending that session, and I look forward to a great session remote, although I wish we could be in person. So, all right. Anything else this evening? Any other updates? Not seeing any, and that being the end of our agenda this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Gerard. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Husnick.
And second from Councilmember Husnick. Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gerard,
Aye.
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson.
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
You too.